as we said before, 15% of the world's population has some kind of disability, very conservative figure. But when somebody pops up and says, oh, if you've got a disability, you can just work from home, there are issues within that, are there not?
Good evening, Trisha. Yes, there certainly are issues. It's not as simple as disabled people want to work from home. It's more about the lack of infrastructure and acceptance around disabled people's issues in work. And you've got to get past the interview for a start. You know, recruiting disabled people into your workforce is often done begrudgingly by employers because they feel, even though the quota doesn't exist anymore, they still feel they need to try and meet a quota for PR purposes, if nothing else. And so, you know, as I said before on your show, disabled people do want to work, definitely, but they've got to get past the interview, and the interview is sometimes hard. I was just speaking to someone earlier on, and they reminded me of something that many disabled people say. It's surprising how often disabled people come second at interviews because, you know, they've met the mark, they've ticked all the boxes in terms of answering the questions right and stuff. But somebody, normally non-disabled people, will be the preference for the employer because they're probably less hassle. And I mean, the issue now about getting disabled people to work from home, you know, it's great. It's absolutely great if you want, if the jobs are there for a start. You know, you've got to put infrastructure in place to get people working from home as well. And mental health plays a part.
And I was going to say as well that, yes, you've hit on the point. People assume that with a disability, that's it. And I mean, disability, I mean, there's such a range of disabilities, those you can see, those you might not be able to see. But there does come with it a mental health issue, does there not? Because one of our callers touched on that. She just had a stroke. And as I said, I'm on a very minor range, but when shattering my femur and having to learn a different way of being and doing things, there is grief and loss. And there's also socialization. Yes, you can work from home if you have to, but you often need the socialization. You need a workplace that you know can welcome you in, so you can have those water cooler moments and social structures and so on.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. The disabled people have been for decades saying we need disabled people integrating into society, into mainstream society, having an equal access to all the opportunities in the workplace. And now we've got a policy about to be introduced where we say, well, you know, you stay at home because that's probably all you can do. And it's better for people's mental health to be in an environment where other people of all diverse backgrounds are working together and learning off each other and making society a better place in general. It's not just about, you know, getting people into work. I think governments need to focus their attention to certainly around disability, but about meeting the gaps in social care. There's no staff in social care. You know, there's vacancies galore across the country, and that's where they should be diverting their attention rather than say disabled people need to get back to work, because they've always been saying that. Whichever political powers in place, they always seem to be pointing the fingers at disabled people, saying that you're the problem, you're not working, that's why the economy is in a state.
Yes, which feeds into it's sort of a vicious cycle, isn't it? And just we can touch upon transport in any. I mean, I think there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's almost a belief that all of the boxes have been ticked but there are buses that drop down to the curb. There's this, that, and the other. You only, and as I said, I'm at the least disabled range if you're having a competition about it. But still, travelling is so difficult. The number of underground stations and train stations and bus stations who only have stairs, or we regret to inform you that the lift is out of order. makes, I mean, all sorts of quote unquote little things which become insurmountable when you're asking people to travel any kind of distance. And that is in the metropolitan area. We're not even talking about rural areas. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, and that's back to my earlier point. The infrastructure isn't there. And what people think is a little thing about such as transport, it's massive to disabled people to get from A to B. The buses aren't still fully accessible outside London. And the ones that are, I've heard of disabled people say to me countless occasions that the bus just goes past them when they realise, oh gosh, we've got to lower the ramp out and get. Same with taxis. Where I live in the Midlands, there's a huge shortage of accessible taxis now. After the pandemic, so many drivers just hung their boots up and said, right, I've done it, I don't want to do it anymore. And you can't get yourself a wheelchair accessible taxi if you tried. And that causes a problem for disabled people going for jobs or sustaining employment. There's so many things that are interlinked, and transport is certainly one of them. And we've got to fix society and the mess around infrastructure for disabled people itself before we start saying get back to work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amo Raju OBE, CEO of Disability Direct. Love having you on the show. We've had you on the show before, and we will keep getting you back on the show. We will chip away at all of this. Lots more coming out, lots and lots of messages as well. Stay with us. We're going to be talking with Dr.